Well. Wrong deep subject, though. This will be the story of the prophet Ezekiel. This is part 9. A lament over Pharaoh in Egypt. Starting in Ezekiel, the 32nd chapter, the first verse. Ezekiel, the 32nd chapter, the first verse. And it happened in the 12th year, in the 12th month, on the first of the month, the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lament for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, You were like a young lion of the nations, but you were like a sea monster. And you came out with your rivers and troubled the waters with your feet, and fouled their rivers. So says the sovereign Yahweh, I will therefore spread out my net over you with an assembly of many peoples, and they shall lift you up in my net, and I will leave you on the land. I will cast you on the field, on the face of the field, and cause all the birds of the heavens to remain on you. If you don't know what that means, they were eating him at that time. And I will fill the beasts of all the earth with you. And I will put your flesh on the mountains, and fill the valleys with your height. And I will also water with your blood the land in which you swim, even to the mountains. And the rivers shall be full of you. And when I put you out, I will cover the heavens and make its stars dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. And bring darkness upon your land. This reminds us of the 9th of the plagues that came upon Egypt in Moses' day. Darkness for 3 days over the whole land. We will find this in Exodus, the 10th chapter, the 21st verse. Exodus, the 21st chapter, the 10th chapter, the 21st verse. And Yahweh said to Moses, Stretch out your hand toward the heavens, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, so that one may even feel the darkness. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did any rise from his place for 3 days. But note this, but all the sons of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called to Moses and said, You go, serve Yahweh. Only let your flocks and herds be left. let your little ones go with you. And Moses said, you must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, so that we may be able to sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim. And somehow Pharaoh thought he was going to leave them in their flocks with him. 26. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not be a hoof left behind, for we must take them from them to serve Yahweh our Elohim. And we do not know what we must serve Yahweh until we come there. But Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, after a minute or so thinking about it, go away from me. Take heed to yourself. See my face no more. For in the day that you see my face, you shall die. And Moses said, you have spoken well. I will never see your face again. Elohim had judged Egypt before. And as he said, they never saw him again. If you remember, that congealed sea melted and came on them. And all of his, and if you frequent any novels of this kind, a lot of wagon wheels and other things have been found at the base of the Red Sea. And a lot of them date back to this time. And there's more stuff coming up all the time. The Bible is being proven every day in the world, but they don't want to talk about it. Elohim exalted himself over the idols of Egypt and would do it again and again in the end time. Continuing in Ezekiel, the 32nd chapter, the 8th verse. I will make all the bright lights of the heavens dark over you, and will set darkness on your land, says the sovereign Yahweh. I will also vex the hearts of many peoples when I bring your breaking among the nations into the lands which you have not known. Yea, I will make many people amazed at you. A dead man? No. Amazed that you were killed so easily. I will make many people amazed at you, and their kings shall be horribly afraid for you, when I shall brandish my sword before them, and they shall tremble at every moment, each man for his own life, in the day of your fall. For so shall the sovereign Yahweh, says the sovereign Yahweh, the sword of the king of Babylon shall come on you. By the sword of the mighty I will cause your host to fall, the fearful of the nations among all of them. And they shall spoil the pride of Egypt, and all its host shall be destroyed. I will also destroy all its beasts from beside the great waters, nor shall the foot of man stir them anymore, nor shall the hooves of beasts stir them. And I will make their waters sink and cause their rivers to run like oil, says the sovereign Yahweh. What will he thicken that water with so that they flow like oil? Blood. Verse 15. When I shall make the land of Egypt a ruin, and the land shall be stripped of its fullness, when I shall strike all those who dwell in it, then they shall know, heard this so many times, that I am Yahweh. Verse 16, this is the mourning with which they shall mourn her. The daughters of the nations shall mourn her. They shall mourn for her, for Egypt, and for all the multitude, says the sovereign Yahweh. It was also in the 12th year, in the 15th of the month, that the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, wail for the multitude of Egypt, and bring it down, her and the daughters of the majestic nations, in the lower parts of the earth, with those who go down into the pit. Than whom are you more lovely? Go down and be laid with the uncircumcised. They shall fall into the midst of those slain by the sword. She is delivered to the sword. They draw her and all her multitudes. The strong among the mighty shall speak to him out of the midst of hell with those who help him. They have gone down, they lie uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Assyria is there, and all her company. His graves are all around him. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Their graves are set in the sides of the pit, and her company is all around her graves. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Those who caused terror in the land of the living are no longer living. 24. There is Elam and her multitude all around her grave. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. Who has gone down uncircumcised? What does that mean? They never did what Yahweh asked them. And this is their comeuppance in that way. Or going down anyway. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword, who have gone down uncircumcised into the lower parts of the earth, who caused their terror in the land of the living, yet they have borne their shame with those who go down the pit. They have set her a bed in the midst of the slain with all her multitudes. Her graves are all around him, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though their terror was given in the land of the living. Yet they have borne their shame with those who go down to the pit. He is put among the slain. there is Meshach, Tubal, and all her multitude. Her graves are all around him. All of them are uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though they gave their terror in the land of the living. And they shall not lie with the mighty that are fallen of the circumcised, who have gone down to hell with their weapons of war. And they have put their swords under their heads. One last time. But their sins shall be on their bones. Note that. Though they were the terror of the mighty in the land of the living, yea, you shall be broken in the midst of the uncircumcised, and shall lie with those slain with the sword. There is Edom, her kings, and all her rulers, who with their might are laid by those slain by the sword. They shall be with the uncircumcised, and with those who go down to the pit or the grave. Verse 30. There are the rulers of the north, all of them, and all the Sidonians, who have gone down with the slain in their terror. They are ashamed of their might, and they lie uncircumcised with those who are slain by the sword, and bear their shame with those who go down to the pit. Pharaoh shall see them, and shall be comforted over all his multitude, even Pharaoh and all his army killed by the sword. Says the sovereign Yahweh. For I had put his terror in the land of the living, and he shall be laid in the midst of the uncircumcised, with those slain with the sword. Even Pharaoh and all his multitude, says the sovereign Yahweh. This was another time. This was not the same time when they were inundated in the Red Sea. This was another time. Continuing in Ezekiel, the 33rd chapter, the first verse. The header here is, Ezekiel is Israel's watchman. There's a reason for that. His patience with them is running a little thin. Verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the sons of your people, and say to them, when I bring the sword on a land, and take one man from the people of the land, of their borders, and set him for their watchman. If when he sees the sword come up on the land, he blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whoever hears the sound of the trumpet and does not take warning, if the sword does come and take him away, his blood shall be on his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet and did not take warning. His blood shall be on himself. But he who takes warning shall deliver his soul. And if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, if the sword comes and takes any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity. But I will require his blood at the watchman's hand. Why? He didn't warn them. His job is to warn them. Verse 7, and you, son of man, I have set you a watchman to the house of Israel. Therefore you shall hear the word from my mouth and warn them from me. When I say to the wicked, O wicked one, you shall surely die, if you do not speak to warn the wicked from his way, that wicked one shall die in his iniquity or his sin. But I will require his blood at your hand. But if you warn the wicked of his way to turn from it, if he does not turn from it, he shall die in his iniquity. But you have delivered your soul. Verse 10, and you, son of man, speak to the house of Israel. So you have spoken, saying, when our transgressions and our sins are on us, and we are wasting away in them, how then shall we live? Say to them, as I live, says the sovereign Yahweh, I have no delight in the death of the wicked, except in the turning of the wicked from his way, his wicked way, and so to live. Turn from your evil ways. For why will you die, O house of Israel? That is kind of a standout there to me. He's, as I said, getting a little fed up. He spoke to them directly in this. Turn. He said it twice. Whenever he says something twice, he's getting a little bit upset. Turn from your evil ways. For why will you die, O house of Israel? Therefore, son of man, says the son of your people, the righteousness of the righteous shall not deliver him in the day of his transgression. As for the wicked for the wickedness of the wicked, he shall not fall by it in the day he turns from his wickedness. Nor shall the righteous be able to live for his righteousness in the day that he sins. When I shall say to the righteous that he shall surely live, if he trusts in his own righteousness and commits iniquity, all his righteousness shall not be remembered. But for his iniquity that he has committed, he shall die for it. How many times he have to say this before they get it? He's not done yet. Verse 14. Again, when I say to the wicked, you shall surely die, if he turns from his sin and does justice and right, if the wicked gives back the pledge, gives again what he has robbed, walks in the statutes of life without committing iniquity, then he shall surely live. He shall not die. None of his sins that he has committed shall be called to his memory. He has done justice and right. He shall surely live. Yet the sons of your people say, they always have an argument, don't they? The way of the sovereign is not fair. But as for them, their way is not fair. When the righteous turns from his righteousness and commits iniquity, he shall even die by them. But if the wicked turns from his wickedness and does justice and right, he shall live by them. Yet you say, the way of the sovereign is not fair. O house of Israel, I will judge you, each one according to his ways. And it was in the 12th year of our exile, in the 10th month, on the 5th of the month, one who escaped out of Jerusalem came to me, saying, the city is stricken, and Yahweh's hand was on me in the evening. Before he had escaped, before he who had escaped came, and he opened my mouth until he came to me in the morning, and my mouth was open, and I was dumb no more. You can take that two ways and you'll be right either way. He didn't talk dumb anymore after his voice was returned to him. 23. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, those who live in these wastes of the land of Israel are speaking, saying, Abraham was one, and he inherited the land, but we are many. The land is given to us for inheritance. So say to them, so says the sovereign Yahweh, you eat with the blood, and lift up your eyes to your idols, and shed blood. And shall you possess the land? You? How? You doing nothing I say. Verse 26. You stand on your sword. You work abomination, each defiling his neighbor's wife. And shall you possess the land? Speak to them in this way. So says the sovereign Yahweh, as I live, surely those who are in the ruins shall fall by the sword. And I will give him who is in the open field to the beasts to be eaten up. And those in the forts and in the caves shall die of the plague. For I have made the land a ruin, and the pride of her strength has ceased. And the mountains of Israel shall be a waste, so that none shall pass through. And they shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have made the land a ruin, this land that you all claim. When I have made the land a ruin because of all the abominations which they have committed. They knew what they were doing and kept doing it. Verse 30. And you, son of man, the sons of your people are still talking about you by the walls and in the doors of their houses, and speaking to one another, each one man to his brother, saying, I pray you come and hear what is the word which comes from Yahweh. And they come to you as the people come, and they sit before you as my people, and they hear your words, but they will not do them. But for their mouth they show much love, but their heart goes after their unjust gain. And lo, you are to them as a singer of love songs with a beautiful voice, and able to play well on an instrument. For they hear your words, but they do not do them. And when this happens, lo, it will come Then they shall know that a prophet has been among them. Continuing to Ezekiel, the 34th chapter, the first verse. Prophecy against the shepherds of Israel. The leadership, as usual, is leading everybody astray, and he knows that. That's why they gave them that chance that everybody says not a chance in the where is that? The 70th verse? We'll get there. It's in Ezekiel. We will get there. Not today, but we will get there. And you will see clearly that those bones are Israel. And they are going to come back in this stuff that we don't want anymore. Ezekiel, the 34th chapter, the first verse. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, so says the sovereign Yahweh, to the shepherds, woe to the shepherds of Israel who feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Not talking solely about food here. If you know the word of God, you pass that word on in accuracy, not something you made up out of your head. Woe to the shepherds of Israel who feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? Verse 3. You eat the fat. What? Eat the what? Not supposed to do that either, but that's what they do. You eat the fat and clothe yourselves with the wool. You kill the fat ones, but you do not feed the flock. You have not made the weak strong, nor have you healed the sick, nor have you bound up the broken, but you have not brought again those driven away. Why not? You drove them away with your foul words. Who's not their Messiah? They say it to this day. He's no Messiah to us. Nor have you sought that which was lost, but you have ruled them with force and with cruelty. And they were scattered for lack of a shepherd. Who were they supposed to be if they weren't the shepherds? And they became food to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. And that one requires a little addition. And they became food to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. That means that anyone coming along preaching anything, they will follow him, but nobody has told them the truth. And they were scattered for lack of a shepherd, and they became food to all the beasts of the field when they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and on every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered on all the face of the earth, and still are. And none searched nor sought for them. Therefore, shepherds, hear the word of Yahweh. As I live, says the sovereign Yahweh, Surely, because my flock became a prey, and my flock became food to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd, nor did my shepherds search for my flock. But the shepherds fed themselves, and did not feed my flock. Therefore, O shepherds, hear the word of Yahweh. So says the sovereign Yahweh, behold, I am against who? The shepherds. And I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Nor shall the shepherds feed themselves anymore. For I will deliver my flock from their mouth, and they will not be food to devour. For so says the sovereign Yahweh, behold, I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out. As a shepherd seeks out his flock in the day that he is among his scattered sheep, so I will seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered. In the what day? Cloudy and dark day. That's the end time. Verse 13. And I will bring them out from the peoples and gather them from the lands, and will bring them to their own land, and feed them on the mountain of Israel, by the rivers, and in all the places of the land where people live. I will feed them in a good pasture, and their fold shall be on the high mountains of Israel. And at this time, that's the highest place on the planet. They shall lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture. They shall feed on the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, says the sovereign Yahweh. I will seek the lost, and bring again those driven away, and will bind up the broken, and will strengthen the sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will feed them with judgment. And you, my flock, says the sovereign Yahweh, behold, I judge between lamb and lamb, between ram and he-goats. Is it a small thing to you to have eaten up the good pasture? But you must trample the rest of your pastures with your feet, and to have drunk of it, of the clear waters. But you must foul the rest with your feet, like Pharaoh or somebody. 19. And my flock, they eat what your feet have trampled, and they drink what your feet have fouled. And everything that they're getting spiritually is bad for them. Sounds like the world right now. So the sovereign Yahweh says to them, behold, I myself will even judge between the fat lamb and the lean lamb, because you have thrust with side and with shoulder, and have pushed all the weak with your horns, until you have scattered them to the outside. Therefore I will save my flock, and they shall be no more more be a prey. And I will judge between lamb and lamb. And I will set up one shepherd over them. Note this. And he shall feed them. And this is where the mistake in the minds of many is today, that say that David will be the one in the end time. My servant David, he shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And on some level that will happen, but the chief shepherd will be Yeshua the Messiah. And all the details aren't there yet. No matter what anybody tells you, all the details will not come forth until the end time. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And I, Yahweh, will be their Elohim. And my servant David, a ruler among them. I, Yahweh, have spoken. And I will make a covenant of peace with them, and will send the evil beasts out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. And I will make them and the places around my hill a blessing. And I will bring down the shower in its season, the latter rain. They shall be showers of blessing. And the tree of the field shall yield her fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase. And they shall be safe in their land. Are they safe there now? Not at all. And they shall know that I am Yahweh, who I have broken the bands of their yoke, and have delivered them out of the hands of those who enslaved them. And no more shall they be a prey to the nations, nor shall the beast of the land eat them, but they shall dwell safely, and none shall terrify them. And I will raise up for them a noted planting place, and they shall never again be of those gathered by famine in the land, nor shall they bear the shame of the nations anymore. And they shall know that I, Yahweh, their Elohim, am with them. And the house of Israel are my people, says the sovereign Yahweh. And you, my sheep, the sheep of my pasture, are men, and I am your Elohim, says the sovereign Yahweh. What is that again? 31. And you, my sheep, the sheep of my pasture, are men, will be flesh. What it's saying. And I am your Elohim, or your God, says the sovereign Yahweh. Any questions? Any comments? Develop?
Back here in I think I marked it. It was said that whoever feeds my flock the wrong stuff, you're going to be punished for that, for doing that, for leading them astray. For them. Because you was telling them the wrong stuff, and you knew better. You knew better.
That's the difference right there. That's the difference right there. If you knew better yourself.
You knew better than that.
And that's the hard part about standing up here or anywhere. You better get yourself in line as much as you can before it comes out of this
Right.
and goes into somebody's ears. And I hear stuff all the time that just, I know immediately it's not the truth. Ruby.
When I hear about the sheep and the flock, it just reminds me of all these huge churches. I had to pass by because they had double trains and I couldn't get through Hammond.
Mhm.
And I had to pass through the First Baptist Church. My goodness, they have so high security in their church. And these are big churches, and these shepherds that are not teaching the flock right, but yet they have these huge congregations, and the security is ridiculous. You would think they're in the military to protect these huge churches, and they're all just money makers.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're guarding.
They don't preach the truth.
That's what they're guarding.
Yes. I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. And it saddens me because they're supposed to be proclaiming the word of God and teaching them, and they choose not to. They just teach them what they feel like, just bits and pieces, just to get them sad.
That whole way that we have taught for years, and I did it too, and I'm going to do it again at some point, but not the same way. But one verse here, another verse there, and that one there, and that one there, and all of them together say something that the Bible doesn't say at all. And so many do that with everything. It works if you don't want to put the time in and get the right ones lined up. If you want to do something quick for a Bible study or something. But by the time you got up here to preach, you got to have this stuff lined up. And that's not hard, and not easy, the way the book is laid out.
To what you take as literally as the word, as opposed to figuratively. Yeah.
Yes. And it takes some study, and a lot of study, not a couple of years, not 4 years in some cemetery. Some get that one, others don't. And that's where the truth goes to die. Develop.
And then it said, he was supposed to be the watchman. In
Mhm.
other words, you getting up there speaking.
Mhm.
And I told you what to say. And you didn't blow the horn. You didn't do nothing. You gonna pay for this more than they are that you were saying it to.
Exactly.
You know, it's right here. I know people that knew about the Sabbath. They knew about the holy day. But when they said, we can't do that because, they're losing pride. What gains a man? Get the whole world to lose his soul. You just do it for money. You remember that? They knew better. He knew better. He knew about the whole case as much as that knew. You couldn't do
I
it.
talked to a guy, we rented this church from in the city for a while. I won't say his name, any of that stuff. He's still navigating, as I should. And he's not done yet. He's still getting on the right path, in other words. And he's found the right day now. He's at a Seventh-day Adventist church now, the guy that we talked to. And his doxology, as far as the Passover and all of that, was better than Armstrong's. But he didn't obey it. Now he obeys it. And the rest of the church, he is in doesn't obey. And they're on the way to kicking him out again. And they kicked him out of a Baptist church, and then he went to a Seventh-day Adventist church. And now they're going to kick him out because they're not keeping the holy days. And he says that he should be keeping the holy days. I ran into him a couple months ago.
Nobody is afraid anymore. Nobody is afraid. You know, when I don't do this and that and the other too, because we got to keep the tags and stuff coming in. If we don't, we're going to lose this and that. We got to pay for this church. Yeah. But then you done lost something more precious that you can't get back. Because he gonna make this paper driving my flocker straight. Leading my flocker straight. Maybe.
And I did make a small adjustment to the holy day schedule. I was one day off on trumpets. And it was that Monday. I've got the sheet already worked up. I'll give everyone one before you leave. Everything else is right. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. You can make a mistake. How was it Ray Hall? You mess up, you fess up?
That's right.
Mess up, you fess up.
We had a former pastor not long ago that tried to change times and seasons. And we read this book and that book, and he would come out with this theory and that theory, and trying to get Jesus' resurrection on Easter Sunday morning. We would not go with that at all. We told him so, and he gave it up eventually. But eventually he did change the Passover for himself. He's dead now.
Yep. I know.
And I said, I've had enough of
He
you.
brought it to me. I've got the whole book in there.
Yeah.
The whole book in there. I don't say any names. I don't speak ill of the dead much. Anyway. But I know who, and I know what. I have the whole paper in there. I read it in a couple of days and gave it back to him, and he wouldn't take it back. And I still have it in there.
I was going to keep the Passover with me. He told me what he was going to do. I said, nope, forget it. I won't do that. Paul told us how and when, and I'm going with what Paul said. Because he was taught by Christ in person.
Yep. You can't get no much better than that, information-wise.
You know what, sometimes I wonder, Pastor, of all those who were in the faith, if during the holy days or when Sabbath approaches, if they have any conscience or they feel guilty of stopping, I wonder if they even have any conscience whatsoever that says, oh my gosh, Sabbath is approaching and I'm not where I should have been. I yet to be with the Sunday or with the holidays instead of the holy days. I wonder if that ever bothers them.
Well, they rationalize it in their head for the reason.
I mean, you get a conscience. You did it before. Or should ask.
No, they do. A friend of mine who grew up in the faith, she's slowly, but unfortunately surely walking away, and she called me and she said, I missed the Passover and I feel really guilty. I'm like, okay, so well, you have another opportunity to keep it.
Right?
But that's for people who were sick or who are completely unable to. She's like, well, I want to do it again, but I want to ask your dad if he'll do it for me. But I'm still going to church on Sundays. I said, you can't have one foot here and
You
one
can't-
foot there. But she's like, I feel overwhelming guilt. I said, well, let's do something about it.
Don't come here.
They feel it, it's just been trouble.
Don't come here until you get the other foot out of the other, over here on the right side. And you know what you're doing. That's human guilt, not higher guilt. That's human guilt, that you got caught.
It's easy to follow
Mhm.
the crowd and to do
Mhm.
God's will. Yeah?
Hmm? Tell her I'll do it next year. If she's corrected things.
She understands. So for those that have made a bad choice in their life, and for those that have gotten caught up, because we all have got caught up with whatever our caught up may have been.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope and pray that this young woman will find her way back.
Mhm.
And not say that she's going to suffer the consequences, because we all have suffered some type of consequences in our lives. But we pray that Yeshua will have mercy on her, and that she will be able to find her way back. So that's beautiful that she's reaching out to you, and that she's talking to you, and that you have not made her feel lesser than what she feels now.
Right.
But we pray for this young woman or young man that they will be able to find their way back. Because we all get lost in some kind of way.
And please pray for them
We
because,
pray for them. Yes.
because now that she's left, it's like Satan's blessing her here and there and
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh,
yeah.
To keep
Big
her
time.
out, it's like,
Right.
well, when I left the church, all these things happened. I'm like, well, Satan
Yeah.
blesses too.
Right.
I'm not gonna even use the same word. He gives as well to
Right.
those who are doing his will.
Mhm.
Case age.
It fills the gaps.
So it's harder for her to come back. She's like, well, everything's falling into place and everything's right. And since I left the church, everything's going well. Okay.
Until a certain day.
Shatters.
Until a certain day. And on that day, a lot of people will, when the money collapses, a lot of people will be scratching their heads, so to speak. Why did I do this? All the money is gone. I'm going to go back. No back to go to. Once that happens, things are going to be happening very quickly. And so much stuff is going to be going on. If you haven't got a root on this and got a hold on it and focused on this, so much other stuff is going to be going on. You'll forget all about it. Ruby.
My dad's struggling right now because the word pasa voz in Spanish means peace be unto you. And it's what the congregation always says. And when he calls me like on Friday, I always say pasa voz, and my dad responds, a los paz, which is peace be unto you as well. And he said something that really just moved my heart. But he says, I'm hurting and I'm struggling, but I want to go back to church. But he has difficulties because he stepped out so long and he was a pastor at one point. And he's done things and he's made mentions. I know God will not forgive me because I knew better that I did it, and then reminded
Repent
Dad,
of
that's
it.
when the Father has mercy. And
Repent of it.
And when you repent of true heart.
Tell him, repent of it.
Yes.
And he will show you what he will do. If you fully repent of it, and he will restore you. He will.
I think because he's got a lot of people that used to follow him are just the same as my dad. It's like Rashida said, the conscience is really digging in his heart and his mind because he's struggling now. He's struggling, and then he says, can we go out for breakfast tomorrow? I says, Daddy, tomorrow is, oh, that's right, it's your Sabbath. You can see it's the Sabbath.
He's
It's
still
your
not there yet.
Sabbath. And he says,
He's still not there yet.
Have a good Sabbath. But it's hard for him because
Yep.
he's eaten unclean foods, he's gone along with everybody else's traditions. So I says, Dad, don't think of everybody else because that's what's going to stop you. Because at the long run, you have to be accountable. You.
as long as life is in your body,
Right.
you can go back. This is the difference, though. If you were rooted in this and go back into something else and die before you do, you are putting yourself in good hands, but the hands of a vengeful God. Do it while you're alive.
Yeah, like when people say
Yep.
it's too late for me to go back, I'm like, you gave you breath.
Mm-mm.
Right.
You still got time.
Yeah.
And that's only for people that have gone into the truth, the unvarnished truth, and go back. And then the only time he's ever gotten anything else from anybody else, and that was his chosen people. And he said right there in this segment, everybody that I came into my flock, that obeyed me, I will forgive all that stuff you did when you come back in fullness. Where was that exactly? I want to go back through that. Ezekiel 34. No, that's the wrong one. That's the one about the shepherds. Not the people. That's the shepherds. I made a joke about it. 21.
Ezekiel 21.
Ezekiel 33, 21.
33, 21.
And it was in the 12th year of our exile, in the 10th month, on the 5th of the month, and one who escaped out of Jerusalem came to me, saying, the city is stricken, and Yahweh's hand was on me in the evening when he had escaped, and he had opened my mouth until he came to me in the morning, and my mouth was opened, and I was dumb no more. And that's when I said the joke about either way you took that, it was still true. And he was dumb because he didn't obey. But the things that came out of his mouth after that would have been dumb too, if he had not been struck dumb. And all of a sudden now he was in the truth, in his own mind. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, 24, Son of man, those who live in these wastes of Israel are speaking, saying, Abraham was one, and he inherited the land. He's going back to that thing about Abraham. They're coming in Abraham's righteousness. Saying Abraham was one, and he inherited the land, but we are many. We're more than Abraham. The land is given to us for inheritance. For it says to them, so says the sovereign Yahweh, you eat the blood and lift up your eyes to your idols and shed blood, and shall you possess the land? He's questioning them. You stand on your sword. You back abomination, each defiling his neighbor's wife. And shall you possess the land? No. Speak to them in this way, so says the sovereign Yahweh. As I live, surely those who are in the ruins shall fall by the sword. And I will give him who is in the open field to the beasts, and to be eaten up. And those in the forts and in the caves shall die of the plague. You have a choice. You have a choice. Make it while you're alive. Once you're dead, it's his choice. And it is based on what you've done up to that point. Anyone else? Sometime within the next 2 sessions that we will get to the dry bones. That's where the answers are.